Three, two, one, go.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Triad of the Force podcast, a podcast from three Puerto Rican friends coming together to do deep dives into Star Wars and other nerd-related media. This is season 2, episode 11, and today we will be talking about the one, the only Qui-Gon Jinn. Yes, yes.
The
We have
legend.
talked about
The myth.
we have talked about Qui-Gon a lot on the show before, but we've never given him the dedication of, one entire episode. So this is for Qui-Gon. But before we get into the main subject, there's been some news around. Goose, why don't you let us know?
The biggest news on the block is that we surprisingly and thankfully have been nominated for an award in a top 10 Star Wars podcast from Your Money Geek. So that came in as a big surprise earlier this week. We obviously weren't expecting it, and it was a fun way to find out by being tagged with our good friend MC from What the Force. We were like that the last tweet in the sequence of nominees, and it's like, hey, look, it's nice to not only be nominated but then be tagged along with one of our first guests of our second season. So it's a big deal. We're obviously very happy, very excited, and very thankful for not only being nominated, but also for everyone that has been supporting us and listening and taking their time to either nominate us or vote for us in the next coming round. Because now, we're facing off against some pretty big deal podcasters. Like obviously, like I just mentioned, MC from What the Force, What Star Wars Explained is also on that list. Our friends Radio Rebellion is there, the Geeky Waffle, the Resistance Broadcast. There's a bunch of really cool podcasters out there, not just cool podcasters, but also good people that we have the privilege to be nominated around. So very happy, very excited, and again, very thankful. So thanks everybody. Now, as I mentioned, is the time to, if you like us, if you want to keep our continued success, we're going to drop a link, obviously. You were expecting this. We're going to drop a link there in the description below. You're going to go into it. You're going to put your email. And if you deem us worthy, vote for us. Vote for us. Every vote counts. As we've seen in the last election, you can change. You can change what's happening. And in this case, you can give us the privilege of honor and respect in this friendly competition with our other podcasting friends. So that's the big news in terms of what has to do with us as a podcast, as a triad. But the other, I think, big news that happened in the Star Wars world, and we're not a news organization here. We're a analysis organization, but we still have to touch upon some of the news. But a big deal happened, something I wasn't expecting, something that I don't know if many people were expecting. But Disney Plus, our overlords there at the House of Mouse, decided to bend and give us a non-canon viewing material on the Disney Plus. Actually, it was a big week for non-canon. I'll get into that a little bit more after this.
Not like this, when I think it's canon now. If the Mickey has endorsed it, it's canon.
I mean, I think they'll want to make a buck out of anything. So it's they don't care. They don't care if it's canon or not. They just want that money. It's like, hey man, just do whatever you want. Here you go. You want this little movie? Here you go. But I'm not gonna make a sequel. Disney ain't WB. They're not gonna bow to pressure for the restore the Snyder cut or restore the Snyderverse. They got their own thing.
They got bigger fish to fry.
Or mice, I guess. But in this case, Disney Plus gave us the Star Wars Vintage Collection, and not to be confused with the Vintage Collection from the Hasbro line. And here we have a couple of things that we didn't expect to see, which was the Ewok movies. And everyone that says they haven't seen them, you're lying. You went to Blockbuster when you were in elementary school, and there was no more Star Wars content. You saw those Ewok VHSs and Blockbuster. You got them. You did. And you loved the shit out of them, and you might have rented them every other weekend. And if you didn't, I definitely did. But we have the Ewok movies. We have the Ewok TV show, Genndy Tartakovsky's Clone Wars animated show, which they've compressed into 2 1-hour episodes. And interestingly, they also added the story of the Faithful Wookiee, which is the animated segment from the Star Wars Holiday Special.
The horrendous one.
Definitely, exactly, which is definitely the biggest surprise of the bunch, because I did not expect Disney or Lucasfilm ever to touch the Holiday Special with a 1,000-foot pole as long as George Lucas was alive. So the inclusion of that was a big surprise. Beyond that,
I'm speculating it's because it probably ties with the Book of Boba. They know how to hype people. Like, it's all about like, oh, how do we keep the wave riding until the next? So you pull up, Boba that has like a third eye,
riding a
like,
fucking dinosaur.
riding a dinosaur. It's like, damn, this is like badass. Like,
Yeah.
But then you still see like it's almost like a prequel to Empire in a way. Like,
yeah. Almost
so,
literally.
yeah. So I think it was. I'm glad they dropped that. They know how to. They know how to milk it.
Oh yes, Disney. They know what they're doing. Anyone who says
It's about the money.
It's all about the Benjamins. Come on, or the Republic credits, I guess, or whatever the currency currently is in Star Wars. But also in publishing, they decided to also revive some of the legend stuff. So more non-canon things are coming out in the pipeline. So all you Fandom Menace haters that only like EU, see, they haven't forgotten about you. They're still re-releasing some of those things. So they are re-releasing a couple of the EU stories in a new paperback format. I forgot what that format is called because I only recently found out that there were different paperbacks have different names, and I had no clue. But now they're doing like a larger paperback format that's apparently more premium. A couple of the stories that they're doing is Shatterpoint, Heir to the Empire, and a couple more that I don't remember. But if you're listening to this, you either already know, or if you don't know, I'm sorry, but you can Google it. You know how to do that. But it's happening. So it's a big day for non-canon, and lots of good stuff to expect and wait for while we're in that road for May the 4th and watch the new Bad Batch. I almost said Clone Wars Season 8. I swear to God, I almost said that. The Bad Batch.
Season 7.5.
Season 7.5 or Clone Wars 2. Like, whatever. More Star Wars is always good.
Excited. Well, anyway.
Yes.
Well, we started talking about, the new casting for the new Obi-Wan Kenobi show, and we got into I think the collective hope that we need Qui-Gon Jinn to be a part of the show. So
I hope Obi-Wan's part of it. I would be whoa. I'm like, what? Obi-Wan and Obi-Wan's not in it? Like, what's happening?
I meant Qui-Gon. We really, really want Qui-Gon Jinn to show up. So we decided to, dedicate some time to this character that we love, that, for those of us who grew up with the original, that is awesome. That is an awesome cover. To those of us that grew up with the original trilogy, I mean, Qui-Gon was like a recent Jedi, and he was just so incredibly awesome. So thoughts on that first time you see Qui-Gon in the theaters in episode 1?
Why don't you talk first, Mo? Because I already went through talking a lot there. So
you need a break.
Wait for a minute. Yeah.
You're ready. You're already sweating. You're ready, like.
Yeah, I'm like, oh my God. And the temperature's rising here in Chicago. So holy crap.
I think it's like, it was really cool, like awesome at this time, like at the time to watch finally, like, what is a Jedi in training? Like, what we saw in this original trilogy was that, it was Jedi in exile. getting training. Like it was almost like there was a Jedi. They had to train as a Jedi because of a necessity. Like here, are seeing just like what you will see in like a school basis or a university. You have like a mentor and that. So this Qui-Gon just like embody like that idea of like wiseness, like if that's is that even a word? Like
Wisdom.
wisdom.
It's okay. It's a Spanglish thing.
The Spanish
Yeah.
thing. Embodies like the wisdom, but also like the joke and like the almost like accepting that like the true nature of like reality. Like it's both what you make out of it, while at the same time dealing with everything that's going around you.
Mm.
And I don't know. I don't remember. I think I mean apart from I do remember seeing like Schindler's List, but I don't remember like the actor. Like
Totally different vibe.
yeah,
Totally
I
different.
think it's the actor, and now I'm like slipping.
Liam Neeson.
Liam
Liam Neeson.
Neeson.
There's a like you bring someone with that like gravitas and like
Mhm.
Yeah.
acting skill, like you're also that it kind of like embodies like that uh non-verbal communication of like
Mhm.
this is what a Jedi master but looks like, but also it's the Jedi master that's it's like the outsider, the one that's like the rebellious one, the pushing against the limits. And you see this like this whole persona that already has a plan set in motion. And even though there are things that are left to chance, they play out almost like if they were planned, but they're
Mhm.
not. They were just so into like Qui-Gon was just so in tune with everything that
Mhm.
wherever situation he was, he will adapt. And I think that's like a really unique character, and it's something we eventually learn in the Clone Wars, that
Mhm.
it's that nature of just embracing and the force and not being like held down by standards
Mhm.
or rules that are imposed, that he was able to transcend the after death in a way. So
Well, quite literally.
He
quite
does. Yeah. He does. He does.
Literally.
so plus he had like a green lightsaber again,
Yes.
awesome fighting skills. Like he was a gambler. There was definitely something as
Well, he was a cheater. He didn't really gamble. Let's be very honest here. The
Yeah.
man cheated. Yeah.
He stacked the odds,
well,
definitely.
Yeah.
well,
It's
well,
like
well, well. You could, from a certain point of view, you can say
you can, from a certain point of view,
odds
anything.
because
Yeah.
the dice was already loaded. So it's
So he
like
cheated a cheater.
he cheated
Yeah,
a
I get.
cheater.
Yeah, he cheated a cheater.
So, negative times a negative positive type of situation. I don't know. I don't know if I
Or
believe
do
that.
just.
Yeah.
Oh man.
And I'm
No.
sorry. I still now my head canon is that Qui-Gon is Anakin's father. Like
Oh,
it
it,
just makes sense. Like
it does. I always thought that when I saw the movie at first. I'm like, are they? Are
I
they?
mean, there's some
He,
there's
there's
some
yeah, there's that scene when he like puts his hand on her shoulder ever so tenderly, and I was like, I didn't, when those movies came out, I wasn't sure what was what yet. You're still figuring things out, but I got a vibe immediately. I'm like, something's happening here. This
something
is way too tender, and I don't know what that word means yet, but I can see it.
This is way too
Absolutely.
tender. Um, I remember really looking forward to just seeing what the Jedi looked like, because in the original trilogy, like Mo was saying, I mean, you have these Jedi in exile, and it's not just that it's Jedi in exile, it's there's barely any Jedi. I mean, you see Obi-Wan, who's like this old hermit, and he doesn't make it past the first film. I mean, in
From a
physical
certain point of
form,
view.
obviously.
Yeah.
Well, yes, because he transcends, and then we get the Force Ghost, right? But that's it. You get Obi-Wan, you get Yoda, who's again not anywhere near his prime, hermit. He also joins the Force, so you don't get to see how the Jedi used to work, and you get all these stories about like before the Clone Wars and during the Clone Wars and all these Jedi, and you have this idea of what they could be like when they were actually in their prime. And then the first ones that you meet are Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, and Obi-Wan's role reversed because this time he's a Padawan being taught. So it's like, oh, so who's like Obi-Wan's master? And then you have this fantastic scene in Naboo when they first light up the lightsabers and you see the green and the blue and them coming through the smoke, and the first time you see like and Liam Neeson just looks so incredibly cool.
Perfect.
Like he's just like, it's like he was born to wear the Jedi robe. It was just like epicness on epicness. And it was this character who was the irreverent Jedi. I mean, it's not a surprise that he didn't make it onto the council. It's a surprise he made it to master status at all, because he ignored what everybody said. It's like, oh, you're telling me to do this? No, I'm going to do the other thing because I don't agree. Like, nope, you're wrong. I don't care. And the way he just talks to everybody, basically, like this confidence that he knows he's right and he's knowing what's supposed to be right, and inspiring that loyalty in other people. Because Obi-Wan didn't necessarily agree with Anakin being trained, but once Qui-Gon died, Obi-Wan's like, this is what my master wanted, and I'm going to do it. And Yoda, council, I don't care what you say, I'm going to do it regardless. So get on board. So it was just this amazing character. And aside from the fact that final battle, both of them against Darth Maul, is to this day one of my favorite Star Wars lightsaber battles of all time. So there's so much to this character. And then all the depth that you get when you find out that he was the first one, or at least the only one that we know, that was the first one to transcend the living force into the cosmic force, even if he wasn't able to do it completely. But then it wasn't Yoda first. He's the one that took Yoda on that path. So it's just like, he's like this Zen master. So it's just great. It's fantastic. What do you think?
Becomes the master. It's like that whole cycle of learning and teaching. I mean, I've always spoken very, very highly of Qui-Gon Jinn, but I always have to frame it from the perspective of being like a very young child watching those movies for the first time. Back in '99, I was 11 or some shit. I don't know, something like that. So I was very excited for Star Wars in a very innocent way, and I just remember that first scene when they just like take off their hoods, and it's just like, I was like hooked immediately. I'm like, that's
it. That's what they're supposed to look
awesome.
like.
And it was obviously a big departure, right, to what we were used to seeing of Jedi, because up until now we've only seen Luke, Yoda, and Obi-Wan, and they're all they're short hair. Yeah, they might have beard, but it's a very short, clean beard. Luke always had like his short hair. He didn't yet have his like Jedi beard until Force Awakens. So all of a sudden to see like this Jedi with long hair and the braid and the chin, the awesome little chin protrusion beard. I don't know how the fuck they got that to work. And I was like, yeah, I'm all in. And the flowing robes and everything. I'm like, I'm in it. And even though back then I still, you're still stupid, right? When you're when you're 10, 11 years old, so you don't really understand the depth of what some of these characters are saying. I remember in that first scene when Obi-Wan just asks, when he's sensing that there's a disturbance, and he says Qui-Gon tells him like, oh, keep your thoughts here and not whatever, something like that. Obi-Wan's like, oh, but Master Yoda tells me I should be mindful of the future. And then Qui-Gon, first truth bomb that like Qui-Gon drops, has always stuck with me until this day. It's like, but not at the expense of the moment. Keep your thoughts here and now where they belong. And I'm like, oh shit. I'm like, this, like, I don't know what that means, but this is gonna be big. So maybe when I'm older, I'll get it. And eventually, like, that's one of those quotes that I've always held on to on Star Wars. And I'm like, oh my God, yeah. Don't forsake the moment because of the future you don't have. Oh my God, I loved this so much. So Qui-Gon always connected with me first in that way of of the wise philosophical Jedi that is he's a hippie, he has long hair, he's like doesn't fit the mold, but he's still part of that order. So there's something greater than him that he still is subservient to, or if not co-equal to. Uh, but then my man, but I have to do it with Aqua Bro voice. It's like, all right, he just like turns like gets that lightsaber when it's green, and I'm like, we're there, we're there. You had me at philosophy, but then you had a green lightsaber, and I'm a sucker for green lightsabers.
And you're a badass. Let's go.
Yes.
I love you.
Yes, it's like, please, I want to be your Padawan. Please take me. So you can only imagine that after I saw that movie, we went to get that fucking lightsaber so I could, beat the shit out of the kids in my neighborhood with a green plastic tube. I had that Qui-Gon Jinn green lightsaber, and obviously the action figure with the comlink thing that when you pass the ship, it would say quotes from the movie. It was all Qui-Gon all the time in my house. But obviously, then you get to the end, and goes down like a chump a little bit. I'm not gonna lie, goes down like a chump. He's being all awesome, and then just a little flick to the chin hairs, and he's done. And I was like, okay, well, I guess that's over. no more badass Qui-Gon Jinn here. Obviously, then we got more expanded stories in the EU, and obviously our beautiful book by Claudia Gray, Master and Apprentice, available at your local bookstore, but not this edition because you could only get it at Star Wars Celebration Chicago. And that's not a paid advertising, so it's fine. Which like expands the lore of Qui-Gon Jinn, and every time it expands the lore of Qui-Gon Jinn, I'm more and more invested because it just solidifies this personality of the character that I'm in love with, which is like this character is in tune with himself and with others and with the Force, and isn't afraid to be that maverick and break the rules if it's not breaking the rules for breaking the rules' sake, but breaking them for what is right. And sometimes what is right is not what the dogma tells you to do, which is why he was never in the council, and which is why obviously the fall of Jedi occurred. But like you were mentioning, now to see like the Jedi at their prime, and especially through Qui-Gon, was something that was very appreciated. And I think now with the High Republic, not to switch topics right from Qui-Gon to that, but the High Republic is kind of showing us more of that more Qui-Gon-esque type of Jedi, where like they're not Qui-Gon-esque in the sense that they're mavericks, but they're Qui-Gon-esque in the sense that they have a broader understanding of the Force, and it's more open, and it's less chained down by the dogma of the council. It's more about your connection to the Force, and I think that that's always what has been special with my man Qui-Gon Jinn. But those were obviously my first foray, my first experience into appreciating that beautiful tall Irish man that became a space wizard.
It's so good.
And I love like he doesn't lose the accent. It's like somehow there's some Ireland is in Star Wars somewhere. It's amazing. Like I think it's there's always like Goose like said something like there's to me like there's always like memorable quotes. Like Qui-Gon is like that character that always, at least to me, like your focus determines your reality. That's first time I heard it, and still to this day it's just like equally applicable. It's like it's like that Zen master that's who speaks in phrases that will always sustain time, because it doesn't matter, they're always applicable. There's always a teaching behind them. And also it's like you can see like his compassion. He's like, although everything's about self-interest, there's always like he'll protect Jar Jar Binks.
He does insult him though behind his back,
but he saves him.
I mean, but even though it doesn't mean you can't benefit from it, but But yeah, like it's that idea of like Qui-Gon is so in tune with the Force that everything is acceptable and everything there's a teaching behind everything.
Mm.
That's what I see. So,
Yeah. Well, I think it's a lot about what you were saying, Goose, about, not sacrificing, the now for fear of the future, which I think
Mm.
it's what should have made Qui-Gon the rule, not the exception amongst Jedi. Because by that
Mm.
generation of the Jedi, they were so afraid of the future that they were not mindful of the present at all and didn't even sense the threat amongst them. I mean, the
Mm.
Emperor was right there next to them, and they were too afraid of Anakin becoming a greater threat that they forgot about,
Mm.
the Emperor in their midst, because they were just not mindful of the present. And I haven't read that much about High Republic, but if it really, those Jedi were more like what Qui-Gon was, it speaks a
Mm.
lot to how a religion develops. How when it first
Mm.
starts, it's like a set of guidelines, not necessarily rules,
Like
and
pirates.
and that should be your guide. Yes. But then by the time of the end of the Republic, which you can tell that there is a lot of corruption and problems inside of the Jedis, and I think it
Mm.
stems from that. Once you become completely of ultimates, this is right, this is wrong, it's only ultimates, that's where you start to crack. When you treat it
Mm.
more like a cult than anything else, I think that's when problems really start to show up. And I think that's part of the reason that they ended up falling, and part of the reason that they lost Anakin and all these other things. So I think if Qui-Gon would have survived his confrontation with Darth Maul, it would have been a completely different story.
Well, yeah, absolutely. But to that point of like the rule follower and the maverick, I think one of the also interesting things about Qui-Gon for me is that he doesn't have a disdain for rules and he doesn't enjoy breaking rules. And it's not
Mhm.
about rebelling against the council or anything. It's about his convictions about what needs to happen for the will of the force, right? Especially,
Right.
and that's always evident for me, like in that scene when he defies the council, right? And then, or he's about to defy the council, and then Obi-Wan just tells him like, don't defy the
Don't
council,
do it,
master,
please
not
don't do
again.
it.
And like he's just cool as a cucumber. He's just like, hey, he's like, and I'm quoting him verbatim. I must do what I must do what I must. I will do what I must, Obi-Wan. And I'm like, oh, this guy's just cool. Like he knows what he's doing. He knows what's up. But like, it's interesting because he doesn't deliver it with like I will do what I must in a like cocky way. Like I know what's
Yeah.
best. But it's more of a like this is what I need to do. So kind of an acceptance of like, well, this is the appropriate course of action, and it just happens to not align
Yeah.
with the rules of this council. There's something that I appreciate about him. It's not he does consider right the rules and regulations or dogma
Yeah.
or consequences of his actions, and he still makes his decisions based on what he deems to be the appropriate choice within the force. Because reading Master and Apprentice was a good way to kind of get into Qui-Gon's state of mind, because
Mhm.
he wasn't too much into prophecy until events happen. Go read the book. But
Good
those
book.
things then start informing like how he starts seeing the force, and it's this way where he chooses the light, and by choosing the light, he chooses to listen to the force and not. And again, Manny, like you were saying, unlike with religion, where you're just following religion instead of like God or spirituality or
Mhm.
whatever philosophical way you want to phrase it, Qui-Gon follows the Force and not necessarily the Jedi. Uh, which is why I think a lot of people also see him as a great Jedi, even though that's not a thing anymore. I don't think he is. I still think he's a Jedi. It's just one of those things where he transcends the order, just like Ahsoka
Mhm.
transcends the order. Uh,
Mhm.
so in a way, he was, paving that way for Ahsoka as a outside Jedi character to thrive outside of those bounds imposed by the Council,
By the
which I
council.
wish Rey and Luke would have kind of acknowledged in the sequel trilogy in some way, like those final lessons of Qui-Gon Jinn and
Yeah.
Ahsoka kind of be fulfilled. Instead of in the negative way that Luke was expressing it in Last Jedi. I wish they would have taken that. It's time for the Jedi to end things in Rise of Skywalker in a positive direction. It's like, well, not because the Jedi Order failed, but because the Jedi Order must transcend. And I think that's what Qui-Gon wanted. I think that's what Ahsoka embodies, and I think that's what it needed to happen. But I digress.
And I think that's what Yoda wanted to happen as well. Because then when Yoda shows up in Last Jedi and he lightning bolt, the first Jedi temple and kind of wanted to let go of that dogma. It's like, you guys weren't supposed to be perfect. The people we teach are supposed to be better than us. So you can't always rely on those past dogmatic teachings. You have to evolve past them. And then they were so close to doing that, and they didn't pull the trigger, because then they show Rey with the books and then using the same thing to continue, when it's like, no, just end the Jedi Order and do something better. But
which is interesting, because the problem per se is not reading the old book. The old book's fine. It's not writing a new one.
Right.
You always have to build.
Acknowledge your past and the history.
Either build upon or build away. But
but you can't just completely rely on it. Yeah, you have to
be like, well, and that was the beauty of Qui-Gon. It's like, okay, what's there? What's the next challenge I must face? And his challenge was literally Anakin Skywalker. And it was like darkness, the dark side or the light side. He saw it in Anakin and the Chosen One. I mean, obviously the prophecy is unclear because that's how prophecies work. But he's like, well, this is what needs to happen. This is what I need to do, and I'm going to emotionally manipulate Obi-Wan in my last moments so that he fulfills my mission. Which, kudos to him.
But then it's now I'm with all that context. Both you and Nanny and Goose brought. Do you think Qui-Gon maybe kind of had a Doctor Strange moment where the Supreme Sorcerer couldn't see past certain events, and it's because right before his death, he's constantly meditating. Every time he's shut down, you will see Darth Maul pacing, but he would just be quietly meditating. Could it be that he almost the Force guided him, he has to die at that moment so he could learn how to transcend the cosmic force and the living force? It almost I don't know, that was what triggers this whole idea of Qui-Gon being living as a living conviction of the force, just following it no matter whatever's going on, and to that extent, no matter if it brings my death, because my death is just another step within the soul force, and that's how he's able to, I don't know, to transcend.
It's a good point.
It's a good idea.
It's always interesting to think about, because obviously I don't think in the real world those type of things are real, and what I mean is meant to be type of discourse, because meant to be only makes sense in hindsight, right? As things are happening, things just happen to happen, and then as logical humans we try to apply meaning to those things and try to contextualize them and then say, well, that was the only way to happen. I don't believe in that shit. But in these type of space wizard stories, actually I think that could be plausible, especially with what Yoda said in Empire Strikes Back, which is always in motion the future is. So he can see the future to a point. He can see all of it. And I think to that point, it can make sense that he can see past his own death, especially because he hasn't learned how to surpass it. So maybe once he started learning how to expand his consciousness in the netherworld of the Force, maybe he started gaining that wider understanding to see beyond,
foresight,
to beyond that. It's a good theory. I like it. Maybe, who knows?
It's possible.
George Lucas knows.
We'll put the plausible. Mythbuster thing.
We have to ask Dave
Yeah.
Filoni when we bring him into the show.
Next time he comes around, when we get our schedule open,
Yeah, exactly. Because he told us he wanted to come on the show, but he was just too busy, filming Mandalorian. So we were like, it's fine, Davey. It's fine.
It's fine.
Just come in next season. It's okay. Take your time, bro.
Take your time. Oh my god.
but if you're listening, please, you're more than welcome.
And don't forget to vote for us our best podcast and share, like, and subscribe. Please.
Qui-Gon, so epic.
And then what? Then we don't see Qui-Gon until Clone Wars, like the series. Then
Not on the
not on
TV screens. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
or TV. Well, TV screens we got the voice right at the very end. But now
Well,
but what? So Clone Wars, was it Mortis the first time that?
I think Mortis was
Qui-Gon?
the first time.
Yeah.
And at that time we weren't sure if it was like the real Qui-Gon, it was like a fake.
Or if it was just visions,
generated.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it was real. It was real.
It was real. Yeah.
It was really real.
It was really real. And then obviously in the Yoda arc, when he leads Yoda to enlightenment and to the path of transcending the living force, which
and then sees the vision of Qui-Gon being not dead with light side master Count Dooku. But that was big.
that
light
was
side master Count Dooku. Would his name be Count if it was like a?
No, it was.
Count sounds like Sithy.
No, I think, and this is without knowing for a fact, but from what I think I remember, because this could be fake memories. I think that when he was taken in as a Jedi, I mean, obviously he was a toddler, so he didn't do it. But as part of the order, he had to leave and renounce all the stuff with his family, as one does when you're part of a cult. But once he left the order, he obviously
reclaimed the title
of Count of Sereno in his luxurious silk pajamas that he uses to fight the Night Sisters in so comfortably.
So comfortably.
Everyone should fight in silk pajamas.
That bet was like 10 times whatever he needed.
Yeah. But he was ready to fight right away. It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Always be ready to fight.
If Mother Talskin is gonna come out of your chest, it's better to have it on a comfortable.
You better be prepared.
Yep. Oops. You gotta be ready to fight in undies and silk pajamas and anything. You gotta be ready. Anything. You never know when she's gonna burst out of your chest. Never.
Yep.
Oh my.
And then finally we hear Qui-Gon's voice when Rey is becoming all the Jedi.
That pissed me off. I mean, it made me happy. It made me happy because, like, hey, Qui-Gon's Qui-Gon. But this is, I mean, we've talked about this ad nauseum, so I don't want to be one of those super haters like some people are with a different movie. But it's kind of like, you can't do that. You can't just give me a little taste and like think that we're gonna do something else and then not pull the trigger. You can't give me the voice. You can't give me the voice and then not show a little sparkly, beautiful Irish man in the back helping her out or some shit. Oh man, very disappointing. Very disappointing.
So close. Mm-hmm.
But no cigar. What did he even say? I don't even remember.
I don't remember which line was his. But I mean, Qui-Gon was able to transcend to the cosmic force and teach Yoda how to do it. Mm-hmm. And we are assuming that he's going to teach Obi-Wan how to do it. So, and then Obi-Wan obviously, or I don't know who he was meditating with, but we know that Luke and Leia are both able to do it as well. So
that would be cool if we had like some animated show and they're both training with Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan and Yoda, like all 5 of them.
Ooh, that would be
I
epic.
got shivers and everything. Actually, no. I think it would be Luke trains first because at this point Leia has stopped her Jedi
Yeah.
training, so Luke is training with the trifecta of Obi-Wan, Yoda, and Qui-Gon,
And
then
Qui-Gon.
Luke trains Leia after he
Leia.
becomes one with the Force. But Obi-Wan Kenobi series, man, it will follow because this is not just like following up with a promise from Clone Wars, which is seeing obviously the disembodied voice of Qui-Gon and then like his spirit in other episodes, but it's also following up a promise from Revenge of the Sith, where Yoda,
Correct.
like in the end, sits Obi-Wan down. It's like, "Hey, sit the fuck down. Like I got something to tell you. Like, training for you, I have. When in hermit mode, you are." Training from your old master, blah 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 blah. And then Obi-Wan's
Hermit
like,
mode
"Oh,
you are.
yes,
Yes.
I should definitely write for Star Wars." And then it's like Obi-Wan's like, "Oh, Qui-Gon," and it's like, and then boom, cut the scene. And I'm like, okay, well, I mean, how do you make this show and not follow up that
With that,
promise?
yeah, you
Like,
gotta.
you have to. It doesn't have to be every episode. We don't need to, but at least just one episode of like super mystical Force shit, where like Obi-Wan's consciousness, leaves Tatooine or something, or if it's just like in Rebels and it's just like nighttime in the desert and it's just Obi-Wan and Ghost Qui-Gon talking over a fire pit about the Force. Oh, please, Lord, please. See, I should stop because then I'm just gonna disappoint myself.
It's just gonna just at least something, just something, just
Anything except Rise of Skywalker tease like a little voice. No voice. I want that Irish man in the same room with Obi-Wan Kenobi.
So the will of the wisps from the Yoda
Sparkling.
arc will not be enough.
No.
No. No.
but
You need that
then
beautiful visage.
Yes.
But you raised the
Thing,
question
thing,
then.
everything. Yeah.
Is Tatooine then like a force sensitive planet? Wasn't it like he can only show up in like force sensitive?
That's before he got super strength, super force strength. Maybe now he's ready. He's ready to go.
Ready.
He's been lifting.
Force lifting.
Been magic lifting, yes. Now
Magic.
he can do it. That's one of the good things about the Force. Some nerds, and if you're one of those nerds, I apologize, nerds. Some of these nerds like take the Force too seriously. It's just like, that's not how the Force works. And it's like, yes, it is. The Force works however the story needs it to work. That's always been how it works ever since the first Star Wars to the second one, when all of a sudden we have ghosts. It's like, yes, that is exactly how it works. So shut up and enjoy it. That means we get to
And
see
then
Qui-Gon
magic
Jinn.
jumping, and then super speed, and then
Skype
like
for Skype.
yeah,
force,
and
force
teleportation.
UPS.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of the force. It works for whatever you need it to work. Like,
Mhm.
but leave it like that. That's the beauty of it. That's because if you start defining, oh, the force has to be X and Y.
Midichlorians, you mean?
We
Now
don't
it's M count.
we don't talk about that anymore.
Now it's M count.
And now it's an M theory.
Speaking of, I always remember something that I always found funny when watching episode 1. It was like their little communicator shits that Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon had. And I was
Yeah.
like, those things fucking look familiar. I know I've seen them somewhere. And then like started reading into it when I was getting more into behind the scenes factoids about movies. And I found out those were like Gillette razors for women that came out like at the time. Where they kind of like those flat things that they like the Gillette razor was technically pink, but then they just spray painted it black.
Are
And
you
those are
serious?
their comlink communicators in
No.
episode 1. And I'm like, I knew it. My mom had one of those fucking razors.
I know. I knew I've seen it.
I knew
I
I've
did
seen
not
it.
know that. Ugh.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Hey, that's the beauty of creativity. You don't need
Well,
to.
and they were incredibly powerful because you get a blood sample in there, and
You
then they
can
can read the midichlorians.
How the fuck does that work?
How did that work?
I don't know, but it's fine.
You don't question Jedi tricks. You know that's how the Force works. Somehow
Magic. Who cares?
magic. Well,
Yeah,
I mean, maybe theoretically, maybe it could like sequence the whole like
Yeah, maybe
ensemble.
exactly. Maybe
And then it just sends the
exactly,
data.
the data. Yeah, yeah. Fine.
You fine.
I'll buy it. It's space science.
But
Sure.
hey,
Science.
Gillette should actually put that like as an advertisement. Like our shavers work for Comlinks.
We can send it M counts through Wi-Fi.
My God.
It's a fact. It's a fact.
It's
Right.
it's a fact. Okay.
Oh, Qui-Gon.
Oh, Qui-Gon.
I
Super
well,
powerful.
but then it's like, in a way, if I think Qui-Gon embodies like the essence of the teacher, like
Yeah.
that figure who's there to like, you know, both being a maverick but carving the way so that others can further explore. And it's like because you even like Yoda's not that great of a teacher. Like Yoda's like this, like it's always either it's always joking or always talking in very
Riddles.
and riddles and esoteric like ways, and it's not that like he's not teaching. He's just like maybe he's super like wise. You can't take that away. But Qui-Gon was there to like teach and like reach out beyond the limits and like push everybody else. So I think that's what.
Yeah, I mean, the only time that Yoda taught was in The Last Jedi when he like black and white just said like, "Hey, the greatest teacher failure is okay. Move on."
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just like do or do not. There is no try. Sounds awesome when you think about it. It's like that doesn't make sense.
But then it's that I'm not supposed to. How am I supposed to learn if I can't try and fail?
It's like, huh, wait, what
Yeah.
did I do? I can't do.
Yeah.
I can't. Wait. What?
I think it might be a sense of like once you become a member of the council, you're so involved in the more political aspects and administrative aspects of managing all the Jedi throughout all the different planets and the peacekeepings and all these things that you kind of forget that role of the master and the apprentice role. And I think it would call back into maybe Qui-Gon specifically didn't want to be a part of the council because he knew that his purpose in life was to be this teacher persona. And I mean, he was wanting to get a second apprentice before Obi-Wan passed the trials. And he's like, I'm capable of doing, he's capable of passing it, so I can be done. But he was willing to take on more than one apprentice at a time. The council just didn't let him, but it felt like it really was his purpose to be this teacher and better the next generation. So I don't know. The ultimate sensei.
Yep.
Very much so. I mean,
I think if Qui-Gon was alive,
he is alive within all of this.
no, but I'm saying on the physical.
Yeah.
He would have saved the younglings from Anakin. I'm sure.
Anakin wouldn't have fallen to the dark side. Period. Because Qui-Gon would have been that father figure that Anakin needed and would have been the guide within his confusion. Because Qui-Gon wasn't tied down to just unapologetic dogma and like emotional detachment. He could have given Anakin what he needed, which was like that more personal touch and that emotional guidance to kind of help him
more understanding
his inner turmoil. So he would have been.
I think he would have demonstrated that he trusted him and that he was more accepting of his decisions. And I don't think he would have, because even though you can tell that Anakin really did love Obi-Wan, he didn't trust him to the level of confiding in him on that level. But I think he would have felt that he could have confided in Qui-Gon just because Qui-Gon was from the beginning this character that didn't follow all the rules of the dogmatic Jedi. So, and I think one of the reasons that Anakin ended up really falling is because he at one point had nobody that he could trust, and then he ended up leaning on Darth Sidious instead.
I mean, that's, and I mean, this is not me conjecture. This is from an interview that, well, not an interview. It was Dave Filoni, and I think it was one of the Mandalorian gallery episodes. I could be
Hmm.
mistaken, but it was definitely Dave Filoni. He was explaining that the duel of the fates and the confrontation between Darth Maul, Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon
Hmm.
was, and the name of it per se was literally about the fate of the galaxy, because depending on who won that fight
Wow.
determined like what Anakin's fate would be. And because what happened was the reason we had the uh, the results we had. So
Well, anyway, talking about the Duel of the Fates, that determined obviously what was going to happen with Anakin, because I think it would have made a difference, him being trained by Qui-Gon versus um, Obi-Wan. But will that have ultimately led to finding balance in the Force? Because you kind
mhm.
of needed, you know, Anakin to be this force that kind of, annihilated the Jedi. And then everybody goes back to level because of that character. And then the next generation through Anakin, who are Luke and Leia,
Mhm.
bring Anakin back, kill Darth Sidious, which obviously in the sequels they bring him back. But at the end of Return of the Jedi, there is balance restored because of that whole chain of events that got started with the Duel of Fates. So,
Interesting. I didn't really think about it that way.
I but it makes
Good point.
sense.
It's a good point.
It makes it makes the force more entropy related
Mhm.
than what we thought it was, because you're right. It took the easiest path. It's like the scorched earth path.
mm-hmm,
You just
Mhm.
kill everything, and that's balance.
mm-hmm,
While you can have taken like another approach, like the nurturing and the growing and the
mm-hmm,
Mhm.
making change, but that takes
mm-hmm,
energy. That takes way too much
mm-hmm.
from the force. I don't know. That's a good question. Like,
Yeah.
is the force just an entropic thing that's there's no light or dark? It'll just take whatever's the easiest path.
Yeah, exactly.
And
I would say contextual. It's just like, oh,
and,
fuck it. This is
and
the
yeah,
easiest way.
and
Yeah.
it happens to be that the Jedi and the were up their asses,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
Palpatine made everything possible for the Force to just flow to the dark side.
Mhm.
So maybe yeah, maybe that's what it was. Like Qui-Gon knew that in a way, it's better.
Mhm.
I have to die because it's the best. It is the best path forward for the
Mhm.
Force.
Or maybe it wasn't just that it was the easy way out. Maybe the Force had been trying to reestablish balance by using the benevolent side for centuries,
Yeah.
but it just wasn't working.
Yeah.
So I was like, screw that. I'm going to tilt the balance towards the Sith and then find balance later on. Who knows? I
Yeah.
mean, there's no way you can understand completely the will of the Force. And I think they've tried to do a pretty good version of, it's not completely benevolent or completely evil. It's somewhere in between. It's just that the factions separated and
Mhm.
gave it the meaning. Jedi say it has to be the light, Sith say it has to be the dark, but you don't have to have, you can't have one without the other.
Mhm.
So,
Agreed.
Yeah.
And light doesn't always mean good.
right.
Too much light is blinding, and yeah,
Hmm.
some would say that's bad.
Yep.
Some would say. Hmm.
Some.
Hmm. So anyway, I think we can conclude that Qui-Gon, even though hasn't gotten that many scenes,
But
has
will in
been
the
a,
Kenobi show.
let's hope so, has been a
Hopefully.
very important character for, all of Star Wars. So
Mhm.
aside from being incredibly badass. So I think we should start wrapping up if anybody has some extra thoughts.
My only thoughts are pertaining to some of the things we said at the beginning.
Mhm.
Again, reiterating our nomination for top podcast on the Your Money Geeks little online competition. Don't forget, if you're still listening, to go to the description, the link below, just vote for us or not, but we'd appreciate it if you do. But that's the only thing I had on my plate for now.
I say to all our listeners, you're all awesome.
Yes, thank you.
May the force
Definitely.
be with you.
And to everybody out there, send good vibes to the universe that we get Liam Neeson in the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. Just send those vibes, and anybody that has the ear of anybody involved in Star Wars, yeah, we need Liam Neeson. So let's make this happen. Okay. So with that, I think it's time to sign off. We are Triad of the Force. You can follow us on Twitter at Triad of the Force, YouTube, wherever podcasts can be found. You can get some merch. We have some awesome t-shirts that you can get. So
get them before Lucasfilm takes them all down. Yeah. Do it quickly.
Just do it.
Do it.
And that's it for us tonight. So everybody, thank you for listening and watching, and may the force be with you.